everybody. We got in a heated conversation. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, announcements. Are there any additions to the agenda? Nothing? Declaration of ex parte contacts, conflict of interest, bias? Nothing? All right, I'll read our public comment statement quickly. The council will now receive public comment. We value the time and initiative members of the public take to share their thoughts with the council. The council's role during public comment is not to immediately respond, but to listen. If there is follow-up necessary, we'll direct city staff to do so. Remember that we all model the way for our community, and we ask that everybody share their thoughts respectfully. Those who have completed a request for recognition form will be called one at a time to step forward and state their name and city of residence. Please note the speakers will have 3 minutes to express their thoughts. So, Mr. Loftus?
My name is James Loftus. I'm the owner of the Gardner House Cafe and Bed and Breakfast. You know why I'm here. I asked for a rebuttal at the last council meeting. Chief Johns took some questions that I had asked in an email and attempted to convert it into a complaint, an official complaint. And it was a retaliatory action in which she defamed and slandered me when she came here and said that this incident took less than 5 minutes. If you look at the police report and you look at Bevan's clock in and clock out, you will find that my story is more consistent with what I've said. Now, prior to this incident, have any of you been in my restaurant or have you seen me come here? Yeah? Okay. Well, thanks for coming to the restaurant, but have you seen me come down here and engage you folks? So I'm going to try to explain that right now, someone said that this was a personnel issue. It's not a personnel issue at this time. It's now a policy issue. Okay? I have to address you for my grievances. I'm expecting equality under the law, equal justice. Okay? I have not taken any actions legally, which I am entitled to. And if I take this from private to public, understand the consequences of your silence. It equals consent. Okay? I really, really don't want to do this. It's a waste of my time and your time. But if I can't address the administrative grievances of what happened to me, and then the course of action of the conspiracy to cover it up is amazing. Stop. Quit digging the hole. I'm asking you, somebody from risk management, come down and talk to me. I want you to understand that when I called down to talk to the chief of police, the sergeant answered the phone and intercepted the call, and I said, I do not want to repeat myself twice. She said, well, there was a burglary call. Well, that's not what's on the police report. I said, I want to talk to the chief. I want her to come down here so I can defecate down her throat and find out why this happened, how it happened, and how it was going to be corrected. And that you, Sergeant, will get your mouth full when I'm finished. And it will come through the chain of command. Okay? Those are my direct words. I've cleaned them up because I'm testifying publicly. But I am asking you, let's resolve this before it goes public. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
By the way, you said that if you thought if anybody up here was testifying that the council decided that somebody needed to, from the city, engage that citizen. Well, I've been here since September. We're now into late November. Nobody's reached out to me except the other mayor who's now resigned.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? That was it? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. So we have the November 4th, 2024 City Council regular session minutes. Resolution number 1120, authorizing the City of Stayton to submit the Stayton Total Maximum Daily Load Report Matrix to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. And resolution number 1121, awarding contract for the Stayton Safety Action Plan.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Councilor Patty. I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented to us.
I will second that. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, motion carries 5-0. Do we have any presentations? I don't think we do today, do we? No public hearing. So the next thing is our general business, resolution number 1122, establishing a comprehensive street improvement funding strategy and amending the fee schedule to increase the street fee.
So at the last work session, I believe, we discussed the street funding, street plan, and got some direction on what council would feel comfortable moving forward, the ways in which the council would feel comfortable moving forward with a street fee increase would only be if we made other commitments, and as well as the prioritization of streets and how we were going to move forward. So what this resolution is essentially trying to capture the direction that I thought I heard at that meeting. I'm just trying to find my stuff, sorry. So it's in front of you, but I'm just going to go through it just briefly, just for you as well as audience and hopefully those listening at home. So essentially, it's establishing a comprehensive street improvement funding strategy and would also amend the fee schedule. It would include a fee increase from $4 to $10, and those funds would be dedicated solely to the street maintenance, repair, and improvement projects. You would be providing direction to allocate at least 15% of the total franchise fees collected annually to be allocated to the street fund or projects necessary to support planned street improvements. That amount is estimated to be where did my page go? Oh, here it is estimated to be about $130,000 a year. We estimate the street fee increase would provide an additional $279,000 approximately per year. We would also be getting direction from council to proceed with the developing of an urban renewal plan that was included in the budget for this fiscal year. We would be moving forward with that. You're not making a commitment to actually adopt it. You're just saying, yeah, let's move forward and prepare it, and then there'll be meetings and discussion about that. And then you're also providing direction to, which we're already doing, but it's making it very clear, providing direction to seek out grants for any and all applicable road projects that we think would be helpful. The resolution also makes it clear the street improvement prioritization that I highlighted at the last, I think it was actually at the regular business meeting. Basically saying priority 1 is arterials and collectors that are at risk of going from good to poor in residential areas. Priority 2 is arterials and collectors that are at risk of going from or that are poor or very poor, or local streets that are at risk from going from good to poor and in residential areas. Priority 3 is a local street in poor condition. Priority 4 is a local street in very poor condition. And just wanting to make clear that this is a guide. If we got grant funds or if an opportunity arose, it doesn't mean that you can't move on to the priority 2 until you've done all the priority 1, but it sort of sets that guide for us. The section 3 of the resolution directs staff to come back to you with a framework for a capital projects advisory committee to assist in selecting projects for funding based on some criteria. There's actually 2 committees currently in the municipal code that I want to look at and kind of morph potentially into something that you might want to do. One's a transportation advisory committee and another's a capital improvement advisory committee. So rather than creating another committee, I'd like to look at those 2 and make one committee that makes sense and that we can actually staff and do. And then we also are committing within this to have some implementing and reporting back to council, developing a timeline and an action plan, and then committing to continuing to evaluate those fees. What this doesn't do, that the original utility rate study proposed, was a regular increase, and so to the fee. So we want to kind of see how raising the fee, changing the allocation, getting grants, looking at the urban renewal, what that does to the needle, and then we'll have further conversations about how we might need to make modifications in the future to accomplish what council and the community want. So that is what is included in this resolution, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
How long would it take to implement the urban renewal plan?
It doesn't have to take super long, 3 to 6 months, to develop the plan and have council adopt it. And then, then it's a 20-year plan to implement, so it's, yeah.
Go ahead.
I always want to call you Mayor. Counselor Sims. Thank you. Don't we have to vote on it?
The council needs to adopt it, but
We have to adopt it, then we have to bring it to the voters, don't we?
No, it went to the voters last time because it was referred to the voters. They did my understanding is they did a petition to have it go to the voters, so that's why it went last time. It's not required to go to the voters. A referendum, yeah.
But don't we have to get buy-in from the other districts, like Marion County?
As part of the plan development process, there's usually a committee that's formed that includes those folks. So you would like to have buy-in from them, and not. I think they need to not object. I think. I don't remember the exact terminology, but if you've gone through that process, it doesn't go to the voters unless it's referred to the voters through the initiative process. Or it's not an initiative process, it's a referendum, because basically...
Somebody came forward and collected signatures,
Yeah.
saying we want to basically appeal this, and so it went.
Okay.
They had to get signatures.
So the bottom line is there's a lot more process that will happen with an urban renewal plan and decisions by council.
Okay. That's just different than, that's just kind of completely different than what I thought we had to do. I thought it had to go on the ballot.
Nope. No, and I can send you the presentation that Elaine Howard had done in the work session. This has been several months, but yeah, it does not go to the voters.
Okay.
Councilor Patty?
Thank you. Julia, I just had a general question about this one. How did we arrive at this 15% of franchise fees from the general fund for allocation?
Basically, I looked at when we went through the budget process last year and we were asked to cut $300,000 from the budget, I looked at what was not one-time things that I would feel comfortable keeping out of the budget. And that's roughly the number I came up with, and so I sort of backed that into the 15%. And that doesn't mean that, you know, if we have more revenue or there's other things that come up, we can't have more. I just didn't want to commit my proposal did not want to commit more than 15% because that's the amount I felt comfortable with.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that.
Should I open this up for public comment? I don't know if we have.
Yeah, I mean, yes, if council doesn't have more specific questions, then public comment, and then.
Counselor Sims? I did.
Go ahead, Councilor.
So the 15% that's allocated to street funds or projects necessary to support the planned street improvements, is that like the utilities and the infrastructure underneath the streets?
That was the thought process, yes.
Okay. Does that need to be, do those things need to be specifically like detailed out?
No, this is providing us clear direction. This is a resolution. You're giving your intent. So, I mean, if you want to spell things out more clearly, you can, but the resolution is providing that direction to us. You know, alternatively, you can take that out. If you're like, no, I want this just to go to streets and not anything else, you can propose to amend the resolution and take that flexibility out. Or you could add more detail in.
Okay.
The Comcast franchise fees, do we have an idea estimate of what they are? 100% of those would be?
It's in the budget. I don't have it off the top of my head. I don't believe we started collecting them yet because they're not operational yet. But we did, yeah, I think we had some assumptions in the budget. Nope, James is shaking his head. We had no assumptions in the budget because they didn't exist. They weren't there yet.
Because we're not planning to use those on anything. Could we do 100% of those towards streets?
Potentially. That might be harder from I'm going to ask James to come up and help me answer that. Sorry, James. Whether or not that's going to be hard from a tracking standpoint. And then I think that the concern, I wouldn't count too much on Comcast because while they are going to be a new revenue source and will go up, there likely will be another, you know, people are going to go from something to Comcast. It's probably not just found, you know, all the people that are Comcast users are new, and so there'll probably be some reduction in other franchise fees. But James, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I have no idea how much it would be. Probably be small in the beginning. Right now, our cable franchise fees is $21,000 budgeted this year. Telephone is $17,000. Those are the smaller of the two. So it's hard to say. Whatever, if we do 15%, you know, that number would only grow when Comcast comes on board. But I don't know what it would look like.
And
Okay.
I guess, would you be able to capture just the Comcast? If that be easy enough to track, if that's what council wanted to do?
Yeah, easily we could. It'll be a separate account code, easy to track.
Okay, I was just curious. I just thought that was a new stream of revenue and possibly using that for streets, but. Else?
Councilor Sims?
Go ahead, Councilor Gillia.
So some of these things, so Section 2, street improvement prioritization. So what does that mean, having it in resolution? So does that mean that, let's say we wanted to do a very poor local street, could we decide to move that up the list one year or do it alongside one of these priority 1 or 2 projects? Does that mean that we're locked into basically just doing these type of projects in this order?
No, like I said, it's a guide, and it doesn't lock us in, but it sets that guide, and there'd have to be a reason and a rationale to do a very poor local street over a poor local street over a local street that is going from, so it's like, it just needs to be thought process. It provides that guidance to us. So, no, there still could be flexibility, but we've got to have some rhyme or reason to how we do things and how we allocate the money.
To me, I just wonder if this is actually going to make it more difficult to do those really hard streets around 3rd. And I know that this is just an ongoing conversation, and I know this is where we landed last time. But as I've just continued to think about it, I don't want to unnecessarily tie our hands from doing a really bad street. And I just know that's always against the grain, no matter when I bring that up or whenever Councilor Ort brings that up. But I know like 6th Street, for example, was one of the more mentioned streets, and I don't think I even saw that on like the 5-year plan necessarily. So I know that's the Capital Projects Advisory Committee should help with that. To me, my only issue with all of this is just feels like there's a lot at once. Just feels like there's a lot that we're biting off at one time, and I understand that we've been working towards this, but I feel like I'm saying yes to a lot or no to a lot all at once, which is, I think, in some ways what you were asked to do. I just don't want to unnecessarily tie our hands to say, like, we can't do, even that second, right, going from poor to very poor, that we would need to, that we would need to justify that, go extensively justify that over, like, a good to poor. And I know that on the initial list, we had both of those, right? On that first year, we have both in those first 2 categories. I think we have streets that are going.
We have
from
1 and 2 priority streets.
1 and 2 priorities, okay.
And I guess I would say that is probably the least necessary right now to do. If you want to remove that prioritization, that is fine with me. But we have to have a plan of how we're selecting streets. It can't just be, we've got so many streets, even at the priority 4. How do you pick which one? We've got to have a plan. And then if we didn't have this more detailed prioritization, then we look at the code, and the code basically says arterials and collectors first. So this is actually, in my mind, providing more options for us to do local streets that are in, at risk of going into more and more disrepair. Again, it's up to council, but I'm trying to move this forward. We've been talking about it for a long time and trying to get us forward. So I'll leave it there.
Councilor Sims.
Councilor Ort.
Go ahead.
I'm ready to make a motion if there's nothing else.
There's public comment, I think you want to, if you want to offer.
Sorry.
And are we in discussion
Oh, yeah.
yet, or is this just
No.
questions?
That's just questions.
Questions, okay.
I just wanted to make a comment. I appreciate and thank you for putting in the franchise fees, money from that. I'm trying to decide if I want to make it anymore, but I appreciate your rationale as to how you came up with that number, so I'm good for that now, I think. So thank you.
Any more questions before we go to public comment? Do we have anybody that would like to make a public comment on streets? We do not. Well,
Council discussion?
is there any more discussion, or?
Yeah.
ahead, Councilor Giglio.
Councilor Sims. I think it's kind of going off Councilor Ort's question. I think I will be a no. I do appreciate everything that's put together. I think that this is good. I think I'll be a no because I think I would like the increase to be comparable. So I think that that's the mechanism that makes the most sense to me. So I think the degree to which the allocation goes or the general fund goes, that's probably the degree to which I would agree to an increase. It still feels like I look at that 10%, and I still that $10 per month for single resident. I know it's only $6, but I think combined with everything else, it's just, and I also know what the future looks like. I still don't think it's setting a high enough precedent for what the city needs to find within its own internal resources. And so I think I would want it to be closer to 30% for the franchise fee allocation, which would get you closer to that same rate. I do think it's good. I don't think it's terrible. Yeah, I think it's a good start, for sure. I think 15% is a good start. I just think I do want it a little higher. And I know that the street fee is the main. It just still feels like we're relying so much on that street fee, and I want to go away from that, personally. And if that's our primary place that we're looking in the budget to find things, I'm not comfortable with that being double the amount of monies collected than what we're finding internally within our own budgets, when I know where money is traditionally, even on one-time things. I think that there's one-time things every year. I know that I know that's easy to say, but I do think there's one-time things every year. And I think that policy like this can be adjusted. So I think that like policies like this, there needs to be a rationale for adjusting it. But it's like if we're in an emergency situation, I still think that we can adjust that number down a little bit. But I think if you set the precedent at 30, I think that's going to be a real incentive to find that 30. And then we'll know, okay, well, this is what it's going to end up cutting, or this is where the sacrifices are going to have to be. But I still see the bent towards we're going to have the taxpayer pay more, and we're not going to find it within our own resources. I think it's there to a degree. I think it's better than it was, but I don't think it's quite where I'd like it to be for a yes.
Mayor,
Councilor Patty.
Thank you very much. I have a question about that one. So, Julia, if we were to increase this to 30%, what limitations and impacts would that have on the budget? That's my question, because it sounds like David Giulio's expressing that he's within a yes vote by 15%. And I'm just kind of curious, because I feel like it's important that something like this that's so kind of foundational to how we raise fees for this huge problem be unanimous. And I think it's important that we really flesh this out and all reach a consensus on this, and that's just my opinion. But I would like to hear what would be taken out by doing that, because I feel like that's going to impact my ability to vote on this.
Well, and of course, I can't give you specifics because we haven't done our budget yet, but if we're increasing it from 15 to 30, that's about another $130,000 that has to come from the general fund somewhere. So that's all the things that are subsidized by the general fund and paid for fully by the general fund, which is police, admin, finance, parks, pool, library. I mean, there's a lot of things that are subsidized by the general fund and or paid solely by a general fund.
See, that was my concern. And so I guess what I'm kind of expressing here individually is that we have to trust Julia here. And Julia's expressed why she's doing this, why she selected the 15%. And like, I hear you, Councilor Giulio, and I hear you wanting to motivate them to do that. And I think that as we go through the budget process, if we find places where you see that opportunity to devote that money to streets, there is an appetite on this governing body for that. And I think that's a place where we can have that discussion instead of just being a no vote on this resolution, because I feel like that sends the wrong message. That's just my opinion.
And if I may, I just want to stress that this is the start to move us forward. it's necessary for us to do our budget preparation. There's still opportunities through the goal-setting process, through policy, there are policy changes, but it is something that I strongly, strongly recommend that we do take some action on before the end of this fiscal year under this current council, simply because it's taken us over 2 years to get to this point so far in conversation and bringing on and having to sort of bring up to speed. And, it sets something. It doesn't mean that it can't change. And so just wanted to put that out there.
Councilor Patty? I'm sorry, not Councilor Patty, Councilor Sims.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councilor Patty. I do agree. I think I think by nature I'm like oh, we do have to get to a consensus, okay? Which is great. I think that's good. I think you're right. Okay, I have a question here. So this is all about directing staff to build budgets, to build things. What's the name? Does somebody remember the name of what's that thing on the end of the budget where it's like those options? You know what I'm talking about? Or this may be a question for Julia. You know the packages, right? There's like the package.
Oh.
What are those called? Like the
I think the ad packages is kind of what you're...
ad packages?
Is that, yeah, James is nodding. The ad packages, I think that's what you might be referring to.
Is there a way to direct, like under franchise fee allocation, that there's either an ad package or a cut package for about 15%? So to say like, okay, we're going to create the budget, but then your ad package or your cut package is for the additional 15%. So that way, instead of waiting till the budget cycle where we have all the things that we can prep and either an ad package or a cut package for about that, so that we would know specifically this year, what is it that we need to cut, or what is it that we would be able to add if we didn't, if we went with less?
Yeah, along the lines with what you're saying, I've had an idea. I don't think I've shared it with this body, but when we're building the budget, it's April, May, and at that point we pretty much know where we're going to land, like in the general fund if there's extra money. And it's at that point where I'm more comfortable transferring money from the general fund to the street fund, and we could use that to build the budget for the next year's street fund. So while I would prefer to raise street fees for street improvements. It's transparent. It's in the street fund. You have to use that for streets. General fund money, I'll just remind you, it can be used for anything. So why would you restrict it only for one thing, in this case streets? But I know we're trying to fund streets. So yeah, I would be more of a proponent to seeing at the end of each budget period, if there's extra money in the general fund, then allocating it to the street fund at the end of that year. That puts the cash into the street fund that you could use in the following year. So it's kind of an annual process to find extra money and then direct it where you want it, instead of doing it automatically off the top, which restricts you in that year of what you could spend it on.
So just to clarify, it's basically taking the, what's the word? The what's that?
Excess revenue?
Excess revenue, or there's a word for that, surplus. The surplus, like right, the surplus, and instead of so it would be saying, okay, at the end of the year, our surpluses would go towards street fund, or there would be a process by which we would say our surpluses from last year are going towards street fund.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds like the federal government, at the end of the fiscal year, we'd have our wish list every year. We'd skimp all year. Then we'd have, whatever command or unit you're in, we had to come up with how to spend all that extra money with a wish list, and we'd prioritize things.
Right. That, in some ways, that's my fear about it, because I don't think that's generally how this governing agencies work. At least in my experience. I think I'm definitely open to that. I think in addition, I guess my question would be, is it possible to create just a cut package or an add-on package that would just, instead of seeing it as a core part of the budget, or maybe it is built into the core budget, but then you just have the plan for saying another 15, if we took another 15% of the franchise fee, this is what would be cut. Or if we added another 15%, this is what would be added. Because I feel like that, to me, that basically says we're just prepared to make the cut or we're prepared to have the add-on, and then it's just going to be left to the budget committee. We're not committing to that, but we also know it's going to maintain and stay in front of budget committees and our committee. Does that make sense?
Councilor Simpson.
Good, Councilor Patty.
Conceivably, is that something that staff could produce, or is that going to be a huge outsized hourly requirement to kind of list the limitations and restrictions in that add cut package, so to speak? Because for me to make that decision, I'm going to want to know what we're taking out of the budget to accommodate this street fund transfer, you know?
Again, I guess it's a little hard to say when we're not like in the heat of the budget process. I could see it being somewhat similar to what we did last year when we were asked to cut, and just saying, okay, if we were to take an additional 15% and allocate it towards streets, this is what we would not do in the budget. The challenge is there's transfers, there's overhead, so it's not probably going to be perfect. And I guess another reason why, I mean, the 15%, like I said, felt comfortable. We're ramping up. We still have a vacancy that we wanted to hire to help us deliver these projects, and we don't have a public works director. If you threw millions and millions of dollars at us, that's great, but we still have to have the ability to spend it. And so rather than cutting off our toes to put money somewhere that we don't have the ability to spend as quickly as we want to, it just seems like, let us work there slowly. Let's see where we get, see how much excess revenue we have. Again, this is a start. We will continue looking at this and kind of figuring out how we tweak and where we tweak. So that's my pitch there. James, did you have anything to add on the 15% modification package?
Yeah, I think, in theory, we can go through an exercise. It's kind of hard to say what the parameters are exactly. Like right now, we have a lot of revenue sources. Well, not a lot, but we have, property taxes and franchise fees and some rents and interest. And we don't have those income sources tied to expenditures like the court and police and staff and that sort of thing. So right now, it just all comes in and then we spend it, out. So if we start allocating some of those incomes to expenditures, we might want to kind of complete that process. And it's something I thought about when I first got here, but I haven't, gotten there yet. So to just do a portion of that, we could. That's kind of a step.
Councilor Sims, to me, it doesn't seem overly burdensome, and I know that this sounds, and I know that it feels like there's probably going to be pushback no matter what, but it doesn't feel overly burdensome to just say, going into a budget cycle, we have a cuts package equivalent to 15% of the franchise fees that we have prepared as an option for committee to consider. And it feels like, to me, that is a compromise that I would be willing to get to a yes on this for. And it feels like we're not committing to that cuts, but we are committing to consider that cuts every cycle, or at least this cycle, or whatever this resolution would cover.
I'm going to defer to James on whether or not that seems. It seems feasible to me too, but you're the one that has to do it.
Well, here's another idea that I haven't shared with anyone else yet.
I like your ideas.
And
I like the surplus idea too. I want to do that too.
Well, this budget cycle, I was thinking about having every department have a cut packet, an optional, 2, 3, 5%. If you had to cut your budget 5%, what would you cut? So going into the budget cycle, we would still build the budget, but then, we would have this page of cuts that is possible or is optional. Maybe it wouldn't get to the budget committee, but Julia would have it. Like, this department, if you had to cut your budget, the department head has a list and Julia has it on her desk. So.
James, that's the best idea. Can you please? I don't even care what we get to on this. I think that's good, because I think that starts to prepare and think about, okay, what are we actually, because right now what I don't love, and I think this is just how it is, and I think it's gotten better over the years, for sure. But what I want it to be specific, right? I want to be specifically, I know I'm cutting this, because it's very general to say, well, we're cutting parks or we're cutting police, and that feels very terrible, right? And it's like, oh, I don't want to cut police. But when you know specifically, oh, it's this thing and this thing and this thing, then it becomes a lot more manageable as to be like, okay, this is specifically what we're cutting. This is specifically what we're doing. Yeah. So yeah, so even if that is what it is, like some sort of cuts package, and it doesn't need to be equivalent to this. I mean, that's just an arbitrary number. But I would love to have an optional cuts package that's presented to the budget committee to consider, because I think that's really what I wanted the whole time. Is that it's very difficult for budget committee, in my opinion, because we don't know the granular details of the budget, to be able for that to be our job, where we go through and are specifically trying to find and identify the cuts. Where really, I think it seems like it's more the departments that should be able to identify that and say, if we were to cut something, this is where it would be. So I don't know where that landed exactly, other than I'd love to see a cuts budget. And so I don't know if we need to tie it to a 15%, or maybe what we just say is to say, in addition, staff will provide an optional cuts, an optional cuts package to consider for the budget committee. Is that something that we would be okay, even if we don't tie a specific number to it under the franchise fees? I think if we added that amendment, I would be okay with being a yes on this. And I'm sorry I'm taking so long, obviously. But.
I actually think this is a really good plan. It's good progress. It's a starting point. And I think it's important to have a starting point. I personally, the number I was thinking in my head for as far as coming from the general fund was $250K. That was the number I had in my head. I've had in my head for a while, being allocated for it. But I would like to see more than 130,000 SDU. But how do we get there? I mean, I mean, maybe that optional. I know 5% would hurt. I mean, as far as each department, I've been through times with 10% cuts in the budgets with the federal government, and it was very, very painful.
Well, so if the goal, so I feel like we in some ways agree on our goals around 260, 250. It's double the 130. If we had just an optional cuts package for 150, and then you're able to pick and choose, say like, hey, I think I'm okay cutting this, I'm okay not cutting this. Is that something that you would consider, Councilor Sims?
Yeah, I would consider, definitely if it was optional.
Yeah.
I mean, something to talk, because that would be more discussion later, I think, to come to a consensus where we all agree on it.
Exactly, but that just allows staff knowing that this is the thing that needs to be prepared. This is just a part of the resolution that needs to be prepared, is an optional cuts budget.
So if that's the direction council wanted, what I would recommend is amending at the end of the franchise fee allocation, just another sentence that says, staff shall prepare an additional 15% cuts package for consideration as part of the budget process.
Councilor Sims.
Councilor Rourke.
I actually really like that idea, and I did have actually some comments when it's time for comments from the council to talk about that. I'm not going to get into now, but kind of tie into this idea, and you'll see when we get there. But that could kind of make this an easier process. Mm-hmm. So it makes me feel better because I know what I have down here in my notes. So just for some ideas and some thoughts on some places that we're already spending money that I would like to consider shifting some money around. Mm-hmm. So I like this idea.
Councilor Sims.
Councilor Giulio.
I would love to just get maybe a little bit of feedback, because I'm in agreement. I like that language. I'm good moving forward in that language. And I don't think that we necessarily need to have this in this resolution. So I think maybe I'm answering my own question, but I would like to see, as the budget committee, what those optional cuts were for the departments. And so if that's a direction that we went into, so to me, I wonder if do we want it to say, instead of 15%, we would like to just see the cuts package more generally, like any optional, that optional package for, I don't know where,
Can I interject there?
put a number at it?
I personally feel really uncomfortable with that because, one, we need a goal that we're shooting for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I have a feeling that if it's offered up as a cut, it becomes a cut.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel uncomfortable too. And so I would
makes sense.
rather have a target and you tell us that target and we'll give you information that gets us to that target. But if you're just these staff have been, I know you may not believe it, very frugal. I've spent a couple of years telling people, tell me what you need,
Yeah.
and then we'll decide whether or not we can give it to you. So if you're asking them to be frugal, they'll be frugal, but it may not be the best thing for the city. So, we want them to be able to operate and be efficient and effective. And so just having a blank check cut, they very well could do that to the detriment of their effectiveness. So I would prefer to have a target that you're wanting us to shoot for.
Okay, that answers my question. So do I need to propose an emotion amendment?
Yes, that's what I would recommend.
Do you have that language? Do you have that
Yeah.
language? I could,
Yeah, basic, I can give it to you.
or I don't know if that makes sense. Unless Councilor McDonald's, Councilor Patty, are there any other thoughts that you have? Okay. All right,
Real quick,
Yes.
I will say, just going back to that, I really think that we need to trust our city manager here on the decision-making on these cuts. I think it's important that, yes, we absolutely review if there's any chances for improvements, but I really think this goes down to trusting staff here a little bit and giving them grace here to operate and tell us what they need.
yes, and I do agree with that sentiment. I will also say I do trust the staff in terms of, I do not think that this staff is operating unnecessarily, like extravagantly or anything like that. I really don't think that. I don't think that these cuts are easy. I don't think that these cuts are, I don't think any cuts are easy. And I really believe that in our city. And I don't, so I just want to back that up. And I also don't think that putting this as an option is going to make this a reality. I think it's just a way to codify a expectation for cuts to consider, which I think is usually the case when it comes to add-ons. There are usually add-ons that are considered, and I think that it should be a similar process, that there should be cuts to consider. So anyway, I make a motion to amend Resolution 1122 under Section 1B, the franchise agreement allocation, that it should read at the end of that section that staff shall prepare an additional 15% of the total franchise fees collected for a cuts package for consideration as part of the budget process.
That sounds-
This is Councilor Patty. I second that motion.
Motion is forwarded and second. Do we have any other discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Do we have to?
So this is on that motion to amend. So you're voting to amend the resolution, right?
No, it was adopting it and
With that,
resolution with amendments.
I'm
Or do we need
sorry.
to?
You guys are good.
You guys are good, sorry.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, you're okay. Just vote.
You move to approve with amending.
Did I? I didn't even know I did that. I thought I said I make a
didn't.
motion to amend.
I thought you did too, but,
I think I said I made a motion to amend the resolution 1. I don't think I said a motion to adopt. Yeah.
okay. So you are, I was right.
So I think you
Just for the
seconded my
record.
amendment. Yeah.
So you were voting on whether or not to amend the resolution to include that, and then you will vote on the resolution.
All those in favor to amend the resolution, say aye. Aye.
But they're not approving.
So that motion carries 5-0.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Council Patty.
I move that we approve resolution number 1122 with amendment.
I'll second.
So it should have said
Counselor Sims?
Council Rourke.
I just want to thank the council and all of our staff for all the hard work and effort that was put into this process. I know that we didn't make it very easy on you, but it's obvious that we all had a goal in mind, and we had different ways of trying to get there, and I really appreciate you guys working with us and the effort that you put in. It really does make this decision easier to make, because we're spending other people's money, and we're doing it for good reasons, but we're still spending other people's money. So it makes it easier to say yes when we know we've done a thorough process. So thank you guys.
Council Patty.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Councilor Giglio, for considering this to find a way to get to a yes on that. I appreciate that.
Counselor Sims.
Councilor Giglio.
I would like to thank Counselor Patty. No, I really do. I think you saying that you want us to all get to a yes and opening to amend, I think was really, really helpful. And I know it's, yeah. So I really appreciate really everyone on this process. I really do. And I know I'm a little bit more contrary at times, but I really do believe that staff has done an amazing job and that the council has done an amazing job of working really hard to get to something that we can all vote yes on. And so I really want to thank that, and I really think it's because there's so many people in this city that just care a lot about delivering for the people in the city. So thank you, Councilor Patty, and then thank you, staff and everyone.
Yeah, I do really think this is a really solid plan. I really feel good about it and all this discussion. Thank you, city staff. I know everybody has been working really hard for probably a couple of years, it seems like, on this to make this come to fruition. But God, I feel really good about this, and I think we're making progress. And we can fix our streets, and after this, we can all hug because we all feel good.
We can fix one street.
It's a start, but it's very exciting.
Is there any more discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.
Yay, good job, you guys. It's just smooth sailing from here.
That was only an hour. Can you believe that? That's actually great. Did you guys believe? I'm sorry. Counselor Sims. I don't know.
Counselor Giglio.
This is not an important, I'm out of order. I know I am. But that's crazy that only took an hour. Did that feel like more than an hour to you?
2 years.
That took
Plus-
like a
That was not an
No,
hour.
I know. It took 2 years, but it was, I still feel it's impressive that it's only 8 o'clock. Okay.
All those budget committee talks about this.
But how late does it feel?
It's been dark outside for hours.
Okay, we need to move on. I think everybody wants to finish this up. Okay, so next we have resolution number 1123, authorizing a one-year contract extension with the Santiam Water Control District for water conveyance. So staff report.
Yeah, and this probably could have just been a consent agenda item, but it's something I thought you might want to talk about. We are working actively with the Water Control District on a comprehensive agreement that will include water delivery, stormwater, potentially sanitary sewer, potentially Mill Creek Park, or not Mill Creek Wilderness Park. Because we are working on that and it's a little bit bigger of a lift, we proposed to the Water Control District to basically do another one-year extension with the same terms that we did the one-year extension for last year plus CPI. feel very good about where we're at in terms of, talking and meeting, and we're comfortable approving the one-year contract extension. So this is essentially what is before you, is authorizing us to sign the one-year contract extension. So we will continue talking about it with them in the coming year, but this just gives us another, not a full year, because we need to talk, get things wrapped up before then, but it gives us another year to negotiate a more comprehensive water delivery and potentially other component agreement. And so with that, I recommend council approve Resolution 1123. And happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Work? Is there any public comment? Do we have any public comment on this, the water control contract? Nope.
Counselor, sorry?
Counselor Julia?
No, it's all right. But somebody else was moving towards their mic.
Okay, so what do we want to do with this? Counselor Rourke?
Sims? I move that we approve resolution number 1123 as presented.
Seconded.
Motion has been put forward and seconded. Any discussion from the council? Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion's approved, 5-0. Wow, charter review discussion.
So last but not least on your general business agenda item is the charter review. Ross is here in person, in the flesh. And it just as a reminder, we had a work session about this a while ago, and the discussion was basically you want to talk about the charter, you don't want to necessarily have a charter review committee, but if we talk about it at council in public and do a little bit more of a heightened announcement about what we were doing, that would allow the public to be involved and hopefully engaged, but not necessarily have another full committee that we have to work through and staff. So Ross and I and Alyssa kind of went through the things that he had identified initially needing to be addressed. Basically, what we're proposing is, and I might be, hopefully I'm not stepping on Ross's thunder, Section 4 is really to talk about annexations, and so that's what he's going to talk about tonight. We'll be having another session December 16th where we're going to be talking about Section 9 and 17. January 20th, we'll be talking about Section 34. And then February 17th, we'll be talking about Section 33 and 37. So that is, I believe, our current time plan. Actually, I think it's the 18th, not the 17th of February, because that's a holiday.
Thank you.
While he's handing those out, I really like the visual of stepping on his thunder, by the way.
I know, I'm like, I said it, I'm like, that's not the way you say it. Stepping on his toes, stealing his thunder. Thanks for pointing that out, Councilor McDonald.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So we are discussing these things, but is there going to be some point where we're going to make any changes?
Yes, so the idea is that we're discussing through these various sessions what you're wanting to potentially change, and then in March we're going to do a full review of all the discussed
perfect.
changes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I can't even get to my share screen now.
I gave you lots of time to do this while I was talking. I know, I'm like I have nothing left to say. Oh. I'm sorry, what?
Do you have any announcements or anything you want to go over while he's doing that?
Well, that would be out of order.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your patience. So this is our kickoff of a charter review, so we're going to walk through 6 different sections of your charter. First up is annexation, and just a little thumbnail on this one. You have the current wording of the charter in front of you. The reason this kind of came to light in my mind looking at your current charter is because the last time you reviewed this provision in 2018, there was ongoing litigation regarding annexation in the City of Corvallis case and a new statute. And you made a small tweak to this provision in 2018, and now that litigation is resolved, and so I figure I really don't have a suggestion for you, but I figure it's good to have a discussion about this provision now that the law is settled. I think we need to wiggle something.
Something happened. Yay! These better be worth it, Ross.
I know, that's right.
That was a technical term, too,
That's right.
right?
That's right, yes.
Right, Councilor McDonald? Technical IT term?
Unplug it and replug it. All right, so this is the current provision. It is one whole sentence long, and you have the wording in front of you. This section was updated in 2018, and it switched the current wording is over 3 acres. Before it was over 1 acre. So in 2018, you just increased the size of properties that could come in without the required election. So now, if a property wants to come into the city of Stayton and it's over 3 acres, that would require an election. Anything under 3 acres would not require an election. And I'll just to note the LOC model charter does not have any annexation provisions, so this is not a provision from the model charter. The LOC notes say that annexation is controlled by state law, so there's no reason to have local regulations on annexation. And so you could delete this provision and annexations could run their course without any problem. So the statute at issue is 222127, and it requires cities to annex territory if the petition is signed by 100% of landowners and the land is within your current UGB, and there are some other minor conditions. So this is essentially if a developer owns a large chunk of land within your UGB, they are the one owner of the property, and so they are 100% of the property owners. They would apply for annexation, and this state law would require the annexation to move forward without an election. And so we have ORS 222127 that essentially overrides your charter provision. And so if a developer owns 10 acres in your UGB, they could apply for annexation and they would not have to go through the vote process, even though your charter says they would have to otherwise. And just another note, the LOC says the statute was adopted in 2016. Around that time, LOC counted up about 33 cities that had some type of charter provision or local provision that would require an election in certain scenarios. So like Stayton, like Corvallis, like Philomath, for whatever reason, they seem to be centered around the mid-Willamette Valley for whatever reason. Marion County is actually pretty strong in this provision. The city of Corvallis case is the case that challenged the statute. The city of Corvallis had a provision similar to yours that required annexations before the annexation, or required elections before the annexation was effective. And the court, after several years of litigation, confirmed that the power to annex comes from the state statute, not from the city's home rule authority. So the state is allowed to place limits and dictate how an annexation should move forward. The city is not allowed to override those controlling state statutes. And so what this essentially means is if we had an annexation over 3 acres, say that developer who owns 10 acres in your UGB and came forward with an annexation application under 222-127, we would have to make some type of interpretation of your charter provision. We would have to say either it doesn't apply because of the statute, or it's actually this annexation is actually required, which is in your charter provision. It says if it's required, then we don't have to do an election. So we would have to do a little bit of wrangling to authorize that annexation to move forward in the face of your charter provision, which seems to speak otherwise. And then here we are. Here's the annexation provision again. So again, it says annexations over 3 acres not required by state law have to go to the voters. And so if one of those annexations under 222-127 came forward, we would just have to interpret your provision as not applying because this is a requirement of state law to approve this annexation without a vote. Again, I really don't have a recommendation on what y'all should do with this. I just wanted to make sure that you had it in front of you, because in 2018, the last time the council considered this, it was still up in the air. We didn't have the Corvallis case yet. That was ongoing litigation, so we didn't have a final answer. Now we have a final answer. The court is saying no, 222-127 controls.
I have a question. Yeah, thanks, Ross, for doing this. I appreciate you presenting this information. It's super helpful to understand Section 4 a little bit better. So it's kind of a general question. Maybe this is for Julia. I don't even know. Hypothetically, if we had that scenario that you're talking about, and then you would have to render that interpretation, would that cost us like legal retainer fees to get that word?
It would not be a tough decision for me to make.
Right.
So, I mean, I think I would probably work with staff on the application. We would work together on coming up with findings of, what we would have to do is we'd have to create findings that you all would adopt that says we're going to apply state law instead of our charter. It's not a complicated process. We would just have to convince you that that's the way it has to go.
So if I'm hearing you right, it might be a cost savings, as far as that goes, to remove this section altogether, since it doesn't matter, if I'm hearing you right.
Well, it doesn't matter when you have 100% of the property owners. So there are scenarios where we would still apply your charter. So there are, we would have to find a piece of property or a group of properties that are over 3 acres that are owned by multiple people, and maybe there's 1 or 2 owners that don't want to annex. Those scenarios are rare. But I'm a lawyer. I can come up with them. I can think of those hypotheticals. I think they are rare. They are unique. Cost savings, I'm not sure. Elections cost a little bit of money generally, depending on what time of year. So if this was a March or September election, there's some cost savings there to not have to go to election. I'm not really sure if cost savings is really the driving factor in your policy decision.
Councilor Simpson.
Councilor Rourke.
Ross, thinking back to like 2018, do you know why, or can you recall like why the council went from 1 to 3 acres? Like, what was the thought process? Do you remember? Or maybe Alyssa?
I don't. I have notes of from that process. I don't recall, but Alyssa was actually here.
I worked here. I wasn't at the meeting, so,
But what I recall, I just in general, I don't remember about the changing of the acres, but I remember it was left in there with the hope that maybe we would not have to deal with the state law, that it was like, let's leave it in just in case. And then, like Ross said, then the decision came down.
Okay, so like just in case it was ruled in our favor,
Yeah.
then we still
Yeah.
have that? Okay.
Yeah. They wanted that local control, I think, wanted to maintain that if
Yeah.
it was possible.
I would agree with that sentiment, but I'm also not a fan of leaving things in that aren't applicable or kind of a moot point myself, if we can't enforce them. I mean, but you're saying there are situations where we could, so.
Counselor Sims?
Council Julia.
Yeah, I think my opinion on this is if we do decide to move forward with changes in other parts of the charter, I think it makes sense to make this change. But I would say, like, I don't think this is a big enough issue to make to bring to vote just over this change. So that'd be my thought. I mean, I think if we end up going to election because of some other things we want to change in the charter, that's fine. But I would say that otherwise, this is not pressing enough for it to be a concern to me.
I think we've worked together too long. That was going to be my next statement, actually, is put a pin in this one. We've got 5 more sessions to talk about other provisions. If we get inertia on other changes, maybe we add this to the mix. But I guess I'm with you. I don't really see this as a solo package to present to the voters. They'll probably wonder, why are we voting on this?
Yeah. Yeah, and we started with the easier one, so we'll get a little bit meatier in future conversations. I was also going to say, and I'll send this to you in an email just so you know kind of what sections of the charter we're planning on talking about when. If there's anything in another section that you want to talk about, let me know as soon as possible so that Ross and I can figure out where to put that conversation in.
Council Patty.
Yeah, real quick, I just was going to clarify, I was under the impression that we were probably going to be opening the charter eventually for a vote, so my suggestion that maybe we remove it if it was like a cost savings or if it just made sense was motivated on that, not, hey, let's bring this to a vote because of Section 4 here, just to be very clear. And then the other thing, too, is since we're talking about that, Julia, I would like to talk about the mayor's section of the charter specifically, if that's not already open.
Yes, that's next. That's the first thing on the next topic in January. Is that right? January 6th is when we're planning on, at least based on my calendar. So, yes.
We did the hard one first there.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
I have a question for council while Ross is here. So he came in person from Eugene. I'm sure he loved the drive. Would you be opposed to him joining us virtually and saving the time and mileage, or do you want to see him in person for this? I mean, I think either one is fine. I just want to get a sense of how you feel.
I'm good with Zoom myself. Anybody else?
I'm also good with Zoom.
That's fine.
I'm okay with that.
I won't be here, so. Okay.
So there you go. You don't get to drive from Eugene to Stayton next
All
time.
right. I do like seeing you all.
We do.
It is
Maybe
nice.
for like the culmination,
Yeah.
like the last one, maybe?
Thank you.
For the party, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for coming, though.
Thanks, Ross. Do we have any public comment on the charter review?
Oh. Thank
Didn't
you.
want to forget that. Nope, no public comment. Any other council discussion? Are we through this topic? Looks like we are. Oh,
Sorry.
Council Gilio.
Maybe it's just because of the first one, but I'm actually getting a little bit of of like cold feet around doing this. How many more meetings do we have? on the charter?
So we are scheduled, and I gave you the wrong dates. Those were what Ross was initially proposing, but I thought we weren't going to have a December 16th. But anyways, so January 6th, January 21st, February 18th, and then culminating March 17th.
There's a summary so far, right? There's like a summary of the changes that you, like the initial, I know that when we had that first meeting, there was a summary of like the proposed questions to consider. And it's just been, I think part of my issue is that it's been a few months, it's been a while since we had the initial conversation, so I'm almost trying to remember, like, what are the things that we're talking about?
Yeah,
again,
Ross,
yeah.
I can send that out to you as well. Ross did a presentation at the work session, and I can find that presentation and send it to council.
Yeah, because part of me thinks, okay, if we have maybe the next one on the mayor, and then it feels like, okay, we either know we're going to like, we're going to move forward on trying to do some changes, or we're not, then it's like, well, if we're not going to make changes on the mayor, because I know that's the biggest, almost the biggest of all of them, then I'm like, okay, well, maybe we just, I just don't want to necessarily, I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say. So I just almost want to be reminded of the summary of the things that we're talking about under those sections. I don't know if there's any consensus on that from council, or if I'm against the wind. My only concern was just, I just think about, okay, if the changes are similar to that, where I'm like, they could really just not be done, or maybe they could be done, and there's a lot of that, what I'm starting to wrestle with is it worth staff time? Is it worth all the time to consider all of those, as opposed to, okay, these are the main things we do know we want to move forward on at least one of these topics. If it's in this area of things that are okay to just kind of leave as is, I don't know, or maybe not, or we can just go through the process. I'm okay with that too.
Let's see what you think after the next one. How about that?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we ready for communication from city staff?
Yes, and I have a lot, actually. Sorry. So I wanted to give an update on an email I got actually from Councilor Patty, but I've heard from others about the puddle on 3rd and Ida. We did our street improvement project, but there was a little something with the design that caused some puddling. Public Works has a fix, but they're going to be going out for bids on that. So more to come. It's not just a simple little fix, but we're going to look at that, and we'll give you an update when we have more information about what the cost will be.
Can I
Yes.
ask you a question about that?
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Sims?
Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. Is that something, like, are we paying for this?
Yeah, it was not a contractor error. It was a design error, so they built what we told them to build. It just wasn't, is that correct? Yes. So it's not the contractor's fault. So, yes, we'll have to pay for it.
But when designing it, it wasn't like foreseen that was going to be an issue?
I can't answer that. I don't know if, Michael, if you want to come up and talk about that.
Because I'm asking you specifically because there was a day when I went out with Lance and he was like, okay, this is what we're going to do here, and we're going to make sure that the water, that the drains right here, and he was showing me, we were standing outside of Public Works, these are going to drain properly, and then I did the exact opposite of that.
So, to the best of my knowledge, I mean, I was not part of the review or even the design on the street portion of this. I know that Lance and our other staff worked on it really hard. And I don't have a specific answer as to why it did not work, other than during the inspection or the design itself, it was missed that this grade or the way that curb was put together was not going to work the way it should have worked. I know that the sidewalks on that side were kind of an add to the contract after it was already bid and designed, so I know that there was additional design done, but I'm not real sure exactly why that failed. I mean, I see now why it failed. you can see that there should have been a second catch basin put in at that corner, and they should have been tied together, just given the length and the distance that they have to gather water from. And that's basically the fix for the thing, will be to excavate out that corner, put in a second catch basin, and rebuild the corner. So,
Is that going to be done on both sides? Because it's happening on both sides of the, both sidewalks. It's happening on the one that's on the public works side and across the street.
So I think where the issue is on the south side of Ida.
the southwest corner of 3rd and Ida.
Like
is-
where
is
the,
puddle
where
that we
Wave
have.
is?
Yes,
Yeah.
right, where
Yeah.
Wave is, yes.
Well, but it's also puddling on the other side of the street, too. When we were downtown for Halloween, it was happening on both sides of the street. We had to walk around puddles on both sides.
I've only seen it on the wave side. It might be that the puddle was so big it was on the other side, potentially.
Well, but that would take up the whole street, though.
Oh, and you were able to walk around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Anybody? At the very least, I would just inspect that as well, because
Yep, I was just going to say.
Please.
So we do have a little bit of rain in the forecast. We will get, how we get out there when it is raining hard, and we'll take a look at the corners a little bit closer.
Thank you.
So far, what I've seen is that southwest corner on 3rd and Ida.
And I'll say, I'm not okay with it. I mean, it is what it is, you know, it is our issue, the design, it was missed. It's not ideal, so I don't want you to think that, oh, we just sort of are okay when we do things wrong and have to pay to fix it. No, but we did something wrong and we have to pay to fix it. You know, and so I think we will definitely, you know, try very hard to make sure that there's more reviews, not knowing exactly what led to it, I can't specifically say, but I think we will try very hard to make sure that those don't happen in the future.
Counselor Sims?
Counselor Julia.
Just because I'm curious, and I know it is frustrating. I think everyone's frustrated, including your team, which is good. I am curious, what is the estimated amount for like going out for bid for the repair?
I have not put together a detailed estimate, but just off the top of my head, I would say $20,000.
Thank you.
And to be fair, I mean, I guess it might not be that much. Well, I'll just leave it. Never mind. I might be speaking completely out of turn, so I don't want to say anything.
Does it have to go out to bid for that much? I thought if it was under 50,000, you didn't have to.
You have to get at least the quotes.
We do. It's called, for procurement at that level, we have to get 3 informal quotes. We can approach the specific contractors we would like to get quotes from. We have to receive 3, or at least approach 3
Okay.
to get the quote. So
Okay.
under that, we're also not obligated to take the lowest bid. We can take the one that we feel fits what we need best. So if a contractor were to propose something a little different, a little more, we could potentially go with that. But generally, we go with the low bid. At like 100% of the time that I've been here. So.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? Okay, sorry, I know it's not necessarily great. Timing-wise, do we have a time frame on that yet, or?
We don't have a
Okay.
time frame. It is, we are getting into the winter weather, so some of this will be weather dependent. But I would expect it could be done pretty quickly.
Thanks.
Ooh, so, sorry, one last question. What is the fix again? Is it a catch basin or is it a?
It is.
Just catch
So,
basin there?
At the corner where the big puddle, where the
Yeah.
puddle starts, is where a new catch basin will be set right there.
Okay.
We will have to pipe it over to the other catch basin. It's the shortest and quickest way to get
Gotcha.
that water into the system. But to do that, we have to take out that brand-new ADA ramp, and we'll have to rebuild it. And that's kind of what drove the cost up,
Yeah.
is taking out that ADA ramp and
Gotcha.
rebuilding it.
All right. Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, a few more. Thank you, Michael. I had mentioned I've been wanting to find a way to share out what's happening at the different boards and commission meetings. Haven't quite figured this out, so bear with me. But today, I'm going to give you an update or a pre-look on some of the board and commission meetings that are happening. So Parks Board, their last meeting was November 5th. They're going to one park a month and looking at making recommendations. The last park that they did was Pioneer Park, where they came up with a list of things that they recommended be done. A lot of them were dealt with fairly quickly by Bob, and some of them are recommendations that we might want to consider through the budget process. Their next park is Quail Run, and the idea is to have projects and priorities to help us with budgeting and planning. We're also discussing with them an RFP for a citywide park signage program to have a comprehensive and cohesive park sign strategy, so more to come on that. Arts Commission is meeting this Thursday. They're discussing their mission and goals, development of policies and programs, and reviewing their roles and responsibilities. And they'll also be meeting their newest member appointed last month. Library Board is meeting on Wednesday. They will receive a library services update and levy update from Jana. And then under general business, they'll receive a Friends of the Library update and the foundation report. And then the Planning Commission meeting is next week. The agenda isn't out yet, but they're going to be considering a site plan modification on Pacific Court. And then the Dollar General site plan, that got continued to that. We were thinking they might withdraw the application because council denied the code modification, but they didn't withdraw the application. So the staff report actually, I think, was released today that was recommending denial of the application because the use isn't allowed in the zone. So that is a recap of what has been happening or will be happening in your board and commission meetings. Just a reminder, goal setting, I mentioned several times this meeting or today, February 8th, please put that on your calendar. It's a Saturday. I also sent the goal updates to council last week. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want to talk about that in the public setting. And then last but not least, I wanted to just remind council of our holiday tree lighting event. We're very excited about that. Melanie is doing an amazing job pulling this together, along with the help of a lot of other staff too, but she's really leading it. Did we have the little candy cane thing? Oh, oh my gosh, you never ever forget anything. That's funny. Melanie failed once. So what she was supposed to bring was a little glow stick candy cane that was going to get you all excited about the walk from the library after it's all lit up, and the counselors are going to be leading the way with these really cute, that you can visualize, candy cane glow sticks, and you're going to be handing them out to people as you walk, and you're going to be really excited. So there you have it. So.
Yeah.
December 6th.
December 6th.
Yeah, just as a reminder, do you want to do a reminder recap? I could try.
Is it the 6th? What time on the 6th again?
So, you want to give the...
So the library light walk will start at 5 o'clock.
Okay, great.
And at 5:30, we will assemble everybody along the waterway next to the library to start the walk through downtown and over to the tree lighting. The tree lighting portion will start at 6 o'clock and the actual lighting roughly 6:30.
And the weekend before that, just as a reminder, the Friday after Thanksgiving, RDS is doing a downtown business, staying open late. They'll have Santa and the igloo, and it will be fun, and the sleigh rides. So that's the kickoff to this holiday extravaganza. And then the next day, Saturday, from 1 to 3, from 1 to 3 is going to be, our tree will be up. The lights will be on. There will be first responders in the Florence Street parking lot, and then decorations for kids and anybody to help make, and then we'll have help putting the decorations on the Christmas tree on Saturday. I don't know what day it is. It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, the 30th. So it'll be fun. That is all I have for announcements.
Anything from the council?
Yeah.
Council?
Thank you. Hey, today I had a citizen reach out to me who's actually a neighbor of mine, and it presented me with a bit of an issue that I wasn't really sure how exactly to handle. And I'm hoping that I gave him the right advice, but if I didn't, I'd like to be corrected by Chief Johns. So apparently today, one of these Xfinity trucks that's going around doing things in town was blocking a neighbor in for approximately 2 hours in front of his driveway and not allowing him to get out of his home, apparently because the vehicle was unoccupied. I suggested that if he was in a situation like that and he had an immediate need to get out of his home, he should probably call emergency services and get him going. I don't know if we're hearing about other issues like this around town pertaining to Xfinity, but just wondering if this is more of an issue than just one person.
So I haven't heard that as an issue, and I don't know, I doubt that that is an ongoing issue. Michael is here, he's heard this, he will make sure that he and Ian talk with Comcast Xfinity and make sure that their contractors know that that is not okay. He could also, I think that's probably a very good solution for immediate action. He certainly, if he was patient and had the time, he could try to contact Public Works to contact them. Michael, you meet with Comcast tomorrow, correct? Do you have your weekly meetings?
Actually, they meet on Mondays today.
Oh, Mondays, okay.
But they can meet at any time, and if you give us a call, we can reach out to each and every contractor immediately and get them to respond.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we have weekly meetings with Comcast just set, and then Ian is in pretty constant contact with Comcast. There have been issues. We maybe you've heard, but somebody who used to be on council had their sewer line, and we found out about it. We immediately contacted the contractor. They immediately got out there. So things do happen, and I actually asked staff, like, how is this happening? Why is this happening? And the issue is that the laterals, so we have locates for our lines, but not all the laterals are located. And so occasionally, if they're just getting it wrong, they're going through things that we don't want them to go through. But the contractors are very quick to respond and correct that when they are made aware of that. So just, please make sure that they contact Comcast and or contact Public Works.
Okay, but immediate, obviously, is going to be,
Yeah.
emergency service. Okay, gotcha. Cool.
All I do is want to say thank you to the staff for the plan with the streets. I think that's the biggest thing that's been on my mind for the last 2 years, to be honest, on city council. So I think we made some strides. Thank you.
Council Sims?
Go ahead, Councilor.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this, getting my phone open again, I wanted to bring this to the council's attention. I reached out to Julia and I was asking her what we would need to do if we wanted to shift or add roles and responsibilities to the Parks and Rec Board. Because I was thinking that because the pool is run by the city, there is, we don't have any oversight over it like we do the library or, I guess community oversight like the library and the Parks and Rec. And I'd love to see, since we have the levy that covers, it's a recreational levy that also covers the pool, I'd love to see that come under the purview of the Parks and Rec Board as something they kind of oversee. With the library, we have the Library Foundation, we have the Friends of the Library, we had Friends of the Pool, that's no longer kind of running right now. Oh, they are, okay. I would love to see them up and running more, and frankly, that's because I would like to see more effort being put into community engagement in terms of getting sponsorships back at the pool, activities that bring in, that are more revenue generating, so the pool can be more self-sufficient. I have always been a big advocate of the pool, and that's something that I firmly believe brings people outside of Stayton to Stayton. So it's something that I want to keep, but we cannot keep putting money, $150,000 a year. We can't justify that when we're just sitting here saying that we can't put that amount of money. We just did. We decided we're going to do the approximately $130,000. But when we haven't been doing that for years, it's hard to say that the pool is very important to me, but also so are our streets. And so we're talking about spending other people's money. Where are we spending it properly? So I would really like to see the pool paying for more of itself, getting grant funds, getting sponsorships, pulling in more money so that the money that we are pulling out of the general fund is less. And that is actually something, when it comes to budget cycle, that I would like the city to be prepared for, because I will be proposing that we spend less money out of the general fund to the pool, but that obviously needs to be replaced, because I'm not saying that I want to shut down the pool. That's not what I'm saying. I do not want to shut down the pool. I want more activity being brought into the pool so that it's helping itself. That's what I like to. So I talked to Julie about it. She said that she'd bring it up to the council, and so that's where I'm at. I'd like to know what you guys' thoughts are on that.
Yeah, thanks. I'll share my thoughts from, knee jerk here. I think anytime that we have the ability to get the public more engaged with some of our services, especially non-essential services that are currently presenting this issue with revenue streams and things like that, I think that's always a good idea. And, I'd be interested in hearing any argument against that, actually, to be honest with you. So, okay. Oh, okay.
I don't know if I have an argument against it.
Just another thought.
So
here.
I maybe you didn't get my email that I sent the other day, but okay, it's okay. So what I suggested to Councilor Ort is to begin. So Friends of the Pool is active. I just found this out today in talking with Emily, and I've reached out to Jack Burnett, who heads up Friends of the Pool, and I think a meeting, and I had invited Councilor Ort, and I thought Councilor Ort, which it's okay. I haven't set it up yet. No. I would have made sure you were there if it was coming. No. I thought, I reached out to Councilor Ort, and I reached out to Jack and said, let's set up a meeting with the 4 of us, and probably Emily, so 5 of us, to talk about what the Friends of the Pool is doing, how we can support them, and find out, making sure they're engaged and getting a real grasp on what it is they're doing. It's just, I feel like since COVID, it kind of went quiet because they used to do fundraisers every year. And so, and I know that they've lost some members to moving out of town or out of state. So just trying to understand where they're at as a group. We've tried having the Parks Board oversee the pool. It didn't work out so well in the past. The thing with the pool, staffing is our biggest issue. And so if we were able to get more adults in there working, we could have more opportunities. Right now, we're going into swim team season, and so pretty much, I think we have 3 high schools that use the pool for swim team practices, so every weeknight during the week up until, I don't know, swim team go till January or February. They are a big revenue generator for us with renting the pool every day. I'm not saying it couldn't work now, because that was way over 10 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago. But I thought, to start, let's talk to the Friends of the Pool and see what we can do to really support them, get them engaged again and active. And they do have funds. I know that's what I was talking with Emily about today, because they were wanting to help with the project at the pool. So.
Perfect. Amen.
Yeah, and so on to the park, I mean, back to the Parks Board, I think we could certainly have conversations with them, but as Alyssa was saying, like, the people that are on the Parks Board are on the Parks Board because they want to focus on parks, and so if we do that, we need to have a conversation that, hey, we're doing more. And then what Alyssa was saying didn't work very well in the past is that you'd have people that really don't know much about the pool giving advice on the pool that may or may not actually work. So we'd want to think about that a little bit more. I mean, it's not to say that there shouldn't be some ability for some pool review, some pool oversight type of thing, whether or not it's the Parks and Rec Board. We just might need to kind of have conversations and work them up to that, so.
Counselor Sims?
Counselor Chilio.
Yeah, I feel like it's yes and. You know, that's what I feel like. I feel like, yeah, it's great. Let's do the Friends of the Pool, and let's get sponsorships. Especially when I think about you got 3 high schools utilizing the pool. I feel like there are a lot of things where high schoolers, especially high school athletes, there's fundraisers, there's booster clubs, there's things like that where, like, there's incentivized parents who want to support their kids' athletics. And I think when you have 3 different high schools that are utilizing our facility, I want to make sure that we're allowing them to support and fund the facility that's allowing them to be able to have their teams. I mean, that's really kind of what it comes down to. And so I think there's a lot of incentive there to say, okay, how do we do that? And I think community engagement coordinator, things like that, where I think there's potential there for growing that asset. The other thing I actually had a question about, and this kind of connects because those 2 things were connected in the levy. Is that right? The parks and the pool. Okay, so this is the question I have, and I kind of hate to do this because this feels like very antithetical to my ethos, but because okay, so library is separate, right? Library is separate. Library is good. Love the library. I'm curious though, like, if the levy is that short when it comes to, like, the pool, right? So, like, when the levy is that, like, the amount of levy is coming up consistently that short on funding the pool, is the question just upping that levy a little bit? You know, is there a little bit of an adjustment to that levy? Because we're about to go up again for a levy, and it's already phrased pretty much like a, what's it called? It's like you can't actually say you're just extending the same levy. You're saying it's...
Yeah, so we can call it a renewal if we're not changing the amount.
Okay.
But once we up the amount, that creates a whole different thing, special envelopes, calling like it's a new tax, and those kinds of things. Not to say that we're not open to doing that. I think we're going to be beginning our internal discussions on what that looks like going forward here in a couple weeks after the not after the holidays, but after Thanksgiving.
And you will be getting a work session and presentation of the pool audit in January, and so I think that's a good time. That's when we're going to have some more information on numbers. You'll have some information on the pool audit, and ultimately we'll need to make a decision on what goes forward in a levy.
Yeah, and that we're looking at coming forward to council. I think we have the pool audit, the second meeting in January, and then a work session scheduled tentatively for that first meeting in February to discuss the levy like all of it. And then if we're going to move on taking the levies to voters, it'll be at that second meeting in February that we need to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. And to me, the mechanism, I think I'm just bringing it up because I just think for me, where I would agree with Councilor Ort a lot is, it's almost like by this way or that way or this way. I don't think it's acceptable to say $100,000 or $90,000 of general fund is going to the pool. Like that's where I wrestle of saying, okay, and even if that means we need to at least ask, right? Ask for that, and my preference, and I think there is a lot potential there, especially when you think about those 3 teams that really need this, and the amount of incentive that there is in that already built in, where I see there being a lot of incentive there. So that would be my first priority as well. But I would say I would like that plan, and I would like something that's like, because I think I'm very close to as well, just saying like I'm ready to vote no on those transfers, because I want to see an incentive. And it feels like unless we vote no, like there won't be an incentive to do it. And I'd rather say, okay, here's the plan, here's the structure, here's what our goals are, here's our strategy towards that. And I think it's going to have multiple prongs. But that's kind of I just want to say I'm in agreement with Councilor Ort on this.
Councilor Ort?
I'm good.
Anybody have anything else? I think we're adjourned.